Hello, welcome to CIO Leadership Live Australia. I'm Kathy O'Sullivan, Editor-in-Chief APAC for Foundry's flagship enterprise brands, CIO and CSO. Today on the show, we have John Taylor, one of our CIO 50 alumni, and who was until very recently Group Executive Technology and Security at MedHealth. Hello, John. Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Yeah, and likewise. And thank you. It's exciting, good start for the year. And loving the weather.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So, look, John, as I said, you were until recently the group exec for technology and security at MedHealth. Can you give us a bit of an overview of your career to date and how you got your start in IT?
Yeah, certainly. I probably got a bit of a non-traditional run into IT. So I left high school and actually joined the Victoria Police Force and went through that angle and did normal street policing and things like that. So the divisional van um, and everything. And at that time, after a little bit of a few couple of years there, I started doing a degree, so commerce and IT degree, which sort of opened my eyes to possibilities. It was going to university was always an aim, but high school didn't reflect that capability, shall we say. And then what happened was I went in and became trained as a detective for the computer crime squad, and did that for a couple of years. And at that stage, computer crime, no one really knew anything about it. And it was back in the days, if people are old enough to remember, when Amazon only sold books and you had to sort of ring up for those books and those sort of things. So we were doing a lot of different work. The internet was new, so a lot of different crimes were being committed, and it was all groundbreaking, new things. Then .com era came along, jumped into a .com, jumped into from there, went into a security role within CGU Insurance, which then became IAG, set up their security capability, and had one of the best times of my career in that time, as we did a lot of new stuff. Went overseas, did a number of different global roles in different areas of IT, and which you know really opened my eyes to how you've got to work with people, get people on side, and the nuances of culture, and and how you had to hone your communication skills to actually help explain and grow people into particular roles for delivery. Came back to Australia after a couple of different roles there, and landed and did some divisional CIO roles, CTO roles, and CISO role for AGL. And that was another really good time in my career. And as you mentioned recently, it was a group exec role for in the health sector. So overall, I've worked it out. I've done consulting as well, and I've probably done different guises anywhere between 9 to 11 different sectors. And at the moment, I haven't worked in the same sector twice, so it's quite an eclectic background, and an advantage I've probably got is I keep adopting what I've done in one sector and say, oh, that could be used in another sector, and then bring that across that way. But yeah, it's been an interesting ride so far, is all I can say.
Absolutely. And great to have that experience of so many different sectors. And yeah, interesting as well. You're talking about computer crime back in the day, and now it's something that's an everyday occurrence and very much front of mind for CIOs and CISOs. So, look, what have been some of the bigger transformation projects you've been involved with over the years?
Yeah, quite a there's been quite a few ones, and ones that have been probably revolutionary change as well as evolutionary change. Personally, I prefer the evolutionary change approach than the revolutionary, but you still got to do both. But mentioned IAG before, did an IT insourcing project. So we were outsourced to IBM, and back in the day, that was the flavor that either outsourced or insourced, and everyone had done the outsourcing, and we brought it back in house, and that was great, building an IT shop. Global security transformation project when I was working out of London, so it was across 186 different countries. And at that stage, people really didn't understand what had to be put in place for a global business and for cybersecurity. And I remember having the discussions about the definition of what cybersecurity was at that stage. That was a little while ago. Did a cloud, a couple of cloud transformations have been really good. So when the technology is new and getting that automation done into your stack is a fantastic way to go. And probably one of the more rewarding ones recently has been around an agile transformation and getting those ways of working right in an organisation.
Now, from those big projects that you've been involved in over the years, is there anything that is kind of a commonality amongst those transformations? Are there any key steps you think that CIOs must take along the way when they're starting out on a transformation journey?
I think the first one is, well, when you land, you got to listen, and you've got to understand what is actually the key points and that people are having issue with in the business, and then also what's the key capability within the technology shop itself and into the business. And it comes back to, and we say it quite a lot in business, you can't execute things without good people. So if you haven't got the right people, regardless of what you're trying to do, you're setting yourself up for failure. And getting good people, it's not necessarily going to get the biggest brained individual going around that's done everything, but a person who's got the aptitude to drive the change and then to be able to get an outcome without you having to micromanage that. So keeping an eye on their prize at the end. And I think the big one for me is you've got to empower people to make decisions whilst you're doing that transformation, because they'll learn, and because you can't be there everywhere, you've got to let people be able to have a crack at things. And if they fail or go a bit off track, your role there is to repoint and guide that in the right direction. So you need to be able to make sure as a CIO that you're painting that end picture clearly to the people. So the outcome's important. How they get there, that's a different story. They might, it might actually surprise you and do it a totally different way than you actually thought that was possible. And but yeah, a lot's got to do with the people.
What about, people are always challenging, but are there any other roadblocks or things that you think from your experience doing transformation that, you're mindful of when you're setting out on this transformation journey, and you think anyone who's starting out on this journey should think about, what are some of those sticky points that pop up and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, I think fatigue is a big one. We all talk about like change fatigue or whatever, and we've all been there. We've sold a project, and I was listening to another podcast earlier last year, and they were talking about how it's human nature to oversell the project or the transformation that you want to do and the benefits at the end. So thinking ahead, you're really better off calling it as it is and not overselling, and getting people on board early and understanding what needs to be done. So when the business is starting to change, that then starts becoming the first hurdle, because if the business changes one way for the positive where you want to go along with the change, everyone will keep that buying. But if they start changing the business environment or the business people, stakeholders start changing, you've got to go back to all that process again, and you've got to really call it out and say, remember, this is what we did. And I think that to me is that chance of change of business stakeholders and environment is probably the biggest roadblock, which then leads into the main one or a sub part of that is really when things get hard, people start losing interest or going, well, we're never going to get there. And every change or transformation, no matter how big, gets difficult at some stage. And if you look at practices of change, when back in the day it used to be, well, you do a 3 or 4 year transformation journey and it might be still take you that long or whatever. But if you don't break it up into small chunks to try and avoid that roadblock, you're just going to get a world of pain, probably your second budget cycle of any major transformation. So, focusing and keeping that focus is really, really important.
So just broadening it out then, you mentioned evolution versus revolution earlier. Do you like to see transformation as something, with an end date and deliverables and milestones and, a very structured timeline on things? Or do you like to see transformation as just an ongoing development within any business?
It's funny is I'm going to go both because you've got to have structured plans and you've got to have structured deliverables and benefits realization and, drive my people nuts and saying, well, what are the 3 big outcomes that you're going to have? What are the 3 things you're going to report out of this initiative going forward? What is it that's going to show that benefit? So that structure's there. And on the flip side, you do want some serendipity around creativity of that transformation. And that then probably makes that adjustability and the buy-in of everyone stronger because people feel that we're tied into an endpoint, but we can be creative how we're going to do that. And the reason my main piece, I do like evolutionary change as opposed to revolutionary change because you can do small projects that build into a bigger change. And you usually find if you do it that way, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the track, everyone looks back and goes, gee, we have done a hell of a lot. But they don't feel like they're getting beaten up with the change mallet or the change hammer. So it's you get a lot more outcome and a lot more shift in practices that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And being mindful, as you said earlier, of that impact of change fatigue as well on your people and indeed the organization. So look, I know you'll have dealt with many vendors and technology providers over the years. What do you look for when it comes to choosing a technology partner? What does a good partnership look like in your view?
Yeah. So I'm going to park in this sense, I'm going to park the financial parts of it because probably everyone will go cost, people, and you get the wrong partner, your cost can blow out anyway. So I think that's what takes care of itself. But for me, it's the culture fit. So you've got to get a partner who's fits with your mindset, fits with the people that they're going to work day to day. And yeah, you do have a commercial relationship, but there's a bit more of a personal relationship that's being established. And then I also like to have partners that will challenge me and challenge my team to do things differently or how we're trying to target. So what I mean by that is, and I've been, like I said before, been on the other side of the fence as well, is the partners that you're hiring have usually seen a few more different organizations than you have. And they're more up to date with what people are trying to do and trying not to do. So if I like a partner to call out and say, actually, I don't think you should do it this way because of X, Y, Z, as opposed to like a lemming off a cliff, you're all going in the same direction. And then they turn around afterwards and go, oh, yeah, we shouldn't, I knew we shouldn't have done that. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me at the time and challenge and give me the option to say, nah, I'm not going to do it. It's from that side. And the last one is for me is a partner that actually focuses at some stage on the exit strategy. And what I mean by that is you're not going to do business with them anymore or be a partner, but being able to hand over the piece of work or the outcome that you can manage it yourself. You can run it yourself, so that then you're not relying on the partner. And I've driven it in my last organisation, and we did it from previous pieces of work in other organisations. Is around the organisation. As an organisation, you are the system integrator, and then you get partners to deliver those discrete pieces of work. So then you own the strategy. You can't devolve oversight and those sort of things, and get those individual people to do those pieces of discrete work, and then they can then exit, and you're managing that going forward and reaping the benefits. You get them back in later on because they've ticked all your nice boxes for the next piece of work.
Yeah, it's a very good point there, thinking about what happens when you want it handed back over to your team. So look, there's been a lot of noise, a lot of discussion around Gen AI, in the past 12 months. It's definitely a very hot topic. Keen to hear your thoughts on whether you think it's something that should be wholeheartedly embraced, or do you think CIOs should exercise a bit of caution around Gen AI in particular?
I think it's AI, automation, and as it's evolved into a bit of AI and all that sort of stuff, it's been around for quite a while. And I think you've really got to automate or perish. So you'll be getting into, capabilities that will go into that side that will drive businesses well and true. And the worst thing you want as a technology leader is the business going off and doing a whole bunch of things without taking you along with that journey, or being able to provide input or drive for that to begin with, because it could be making uneducated decisions, or conversely, if they're making good decisions, you can help build on that. But I think where CIOs really should be focusing is, all right, let's get the data right, because you can't do automation, you can't do AI if your data and everything is a total mess. And then if you're getting that basics right, then that will give you the leg up to do quality AI components. But you should put your toe in the water. You should be helping, showing innovation and driving the business forward through that as well.
So how has the role of CIO changed since you first started out in your career? And what do you think are some of the biggest challenges facing CIOs today?
Yeah. I think the biggest change I've seen is that the technology leadership role is really just seen as the person that was running desktops and servers and those sort of things into a business partner or a business leader or business equal. And I think the biggest risk for an organisation, if they don't get their CIO involved in the business, and CIOs conversely also not willing to get involved in the business. And I think a lot of a business might say the technology leader, they're not running a P&L, or they're not part of the business, but the insight that a CIO can bring is that they cut across the business and see a whole bunch of different things. And if you look at my career, I've looked at so many sectors and everything. There's little insights I could bring that they might not have thought of, or conversely, and I've seen this so many times. You have one part of the business doing A, and the other part of the business doing the same A, and you go, well, how come you guys aren't talking to each other? Because we're wasting money. So I think that's the biggest issue that CIOs have got, and it's also the biggest issues that businesses, or the thing that businesses don't, or they run the risk of not leveraging enough, the technology leaders.
So just on that then, how as a CIO do you demonstrate the value that the IT team brings to the wider organization? And, has that strategy part that sees all the pieces and how they can work better together? How do you champion the work you do and your team does to the exec and the wider organization?
Good, very good question, that one. And I think regardless of all the transformation and all that sort of pieces and change that you bring, your license to operate is getting the basics right. So you have to get your basic operational capabilities correct, and you have to get stability in the environment, and you have to improve that part of the environment. The other part to it is around the financial management. If you're seen as a good financial manager, most likely the businesses will start entrusting you with more capability and more empower with more cost control or cost spend. And the last part of it, and then is that when you're coming back to the transformation piece, is it structure around those projects. So if you deliver what you say you're going to deliver, then the business goes, okay, that's great. And then if you deliver, say, 5 quality pieces of work, and then the 6th one doesn't go well, they're going to turn around and go, well, okay, well, there's a bit of credit for what you've done in the past and a bit of buy-in. So I think, get the basics right, get your operational capabilities right, and then work out how do you get your project delivery correct and help drive that organisation forward through that strategy piece.
Now, you mentioned earlier the importance of people.
Yep.
So what's been your strategy around people, the people piece in the past, around getting the best out of your team and making them really thrive?
Yeah, it's yes, but probably the biggest one when I reflect on that question is you try to treat people the way that you want to be treated. So what I mean by that is when I reflect on my career, what I wanted to do is I wanted to do good work. I wanted to be listened to. I wanted to be able to have a go at things. I wanted to know that my leaders had my back if things weren't going right. And so if I do the same thing, so if I listen to my staff, I empower my staff to make decisions, give them interesting pieces of work, and make them feel like they're adding value to the organisation, then those people grow. So we all want to go to work, and we all want to be people that go to work for a reason. And we just, if you think about through your whole career, the roles that you haven't liked, they're usually the ones where you just go and you sit at a desk, it's same trudgery every day. Why am I doing this? But if the ones that you go for, there's a good camaraderie around the department. There's leaders that listen to what's going on if you raise concerns or whatever, and there's you're entrusted and you're empowered to deliver what you want to do. So I think that empowerment for me is a huge thing. And as a CIO, you still carry the can. Again, if you're empowering someone and they don't succeed, you've got to cover them, give them air cover to turn it around, but you still got to take accountability for what that outcome is.
Look, technology has had a problem in recent years around diversity, and it is improving, but I'm just curious on your thoughts around how to attract more people from different backgrounds to consider technology and IT as a career.
Yeah, over the years, I've actually hired a lot of people who have fresh into IT and never had a background in IT for particular roles. So, labour markets around the world have always been tight, and that drive for getting good people has always been difficult. So if you think a bit laterally and go, well, I'm working in an engineering company, for example, and I can't find a person who's got those particular skills. So can I get someone who's an engineer that can talk that language of the business and then skill them up to be able to learn? And I've done that a couple of times with people where, they've got like a rabbit in the headlights in the role, but because they understand the business or what the business does through their own background, jumping and learning that extra bit is actually not as big a jump as what they fear. And that diversity is diversity of gender, backgrounds, beliefs, all those sort of things is really, really important to get a very good solid outcome in what you're trying to do, coming back to, questioning and curiosity and things like that. So, you put that into the melting pot, and then before you know it, you've got a group and a solid group of people that can really deliver what needs to be done and enjoying what they do.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's amazing the perspectives that someone who's come from the business into the IT team that can provide. Um, so when you reflect back on your own career, John, are there any lessons or mistakes you've made along the way that in hindsight you've learned a lot from and they've really shaped you as a leader?
Yeah, I've spoken to a few people about this over the years. Is I do have this thing called, you got an asset that we often don't delve into, and that's mistake collateral. So if you think about your whole life and you think about your whole career, you've made a lot of mistakes, but you always go to people and say, "Look at how successful I've been," or "Look how successful that person is." But the mistakes that you're making along the way yeah, are probably what you need to really focus on and learn from. And I remember my first leadership roles, it was, I made some doozy of mistakes with how I managed people and how I, you know, talk to people, or when I was doing first projects of how to make sure that those deliverables and articulation and things were done. And it's just a matter of how you recover from those mistakes as quick as possible. I haven't actually answering your question. Actually hasn't delved in on a particular mistake, though. But I think the biggest one for me, and it's probably a number of bits. And coming back to it, listening is, I've done a number of times where I just haven't stopped the conversation to listen into what someone is saying in that room. They're saying that for a reason, and then delving into why are they saying that. And that took me a long time to learn, because I was just going more learning towards that groupthink view, as opposed to going, okay, so you tell me, why are you doing it? And then the one of the earlier mistakes I made, in a leadership sense, was recruiting a team that with a lot of similarities, as opposed to the big diverse team. Now, luckily, I made that really early in my career, and I still think probably there's a number of leaders out there later in their career still haven't learnt that part. But I think if I was going to go to anyone who's a new leader, just identify what your gaps are in your own makeup, get people in your leadership team who can plug those gaps, get people in that leadership team who have the same culture, values as you. It doesn't have to be exact, but everyone's pushing in the right direction. And then encourage that diversity of thought and diversity of conversation and thinking that will make you a more successful leader as you can, because you can't do everything and know everything. And that's probably the biggest mistake that every leader makes at some stage in their career.
For sure. No, great advice there. So finally then, John, what's important to you as we head into 2024?
Yeah, so well, I mean, but as mentioned, is that left Med Health now, so I'm in between roles. But I think from if I look at like a industry perspective, I think everywhere the economy has changed a little bit. So companies who haven't focused on effective cost management are going to struggle. So this year it's going to be about how can I get even more from the same or more for less, and where I get investment is that investment the best thing that I can get for future growth into going forward. And that might mean, long game again on that investment. But I think technology, I think, is showing its worth and it's showing its value in all organizations. And, we talk about companies being technology companies and not technology companies. And I find it very hard to find a company these days that doesn't have a heavy reliance on technology. So it's how you manage those costs is going to be really important for every every leader. And coming back to something I mentioned before, is I think data is probably so important to get right, because it's an underpin for everything. And 2024 has got to be, security, exploitation, compliance, monetization of your data.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, and I look forward to catching up with you again in your next role. John Taylor, thank you so much for talking to us on CIO Leadership Live today.
Thank you, Kathy. It was good to share my views.